Good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching from today. I want to speak something into your spirit. Something that will lift your faith, stir your heart, and remind you that what you're believing for is already in motion. We all love it when we pray and see an immediate answer. When we take a step of faith and instantly see doors open. But what about those moments when nothing seems to be happening? When you're believing for healing, but you still feel the pain? When you're standing in faith for that promotion, but you keep getting passed over? When you're asking for restoration in your family, but things seem to be getting worse? This is where real faith begins. Not in the moments when you see signs, but in the moments when you don't. The scripture says we walk by faith, not by sight. That means we believe before we see it. We trust before there's any evidence. We stand firm before the breakthrough comes. Think about Abraham. God told him he'd be the father of many nations, but for years he didn't have a single child. No sign, no proof, just a promise. But he kept believing, and in the right time, the promise came to pass. What if he had given up because he didn't see the sign? I want to encourage you today. Don't put your faith in what you see, put it in what God said. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because there's no sign today doesn't mean the miracle isn't on its way. Some of you are standing in faith right now, and everything in the natural tells you it's not going to happen. The enemy whispers, you're wasting your time. You're believing for nothing. But I came to tell you, keep believing without a sign. Keep praising before the answer shows up. Keep thanking God like it's already done. Because when you do, you're setting yourself up for a sudden shift. That situation can turn around overnight. That healing can manifest quickly. That opportunity can come when you least expect it. The moment you feel like giving up, that's often the moment right before the breakthrough. So hold on. Stay in faith. Keep believing, because the absence of a sign is not the absence of God. And the promise is still on the way. It's easy to believe when you see the evidence. When the doctor says you're getting better, when the finances improve, when the right doors start opening. But real faith is believing before the evidence appears. It's trusting in the promise, even when everything around you suggests otherwise. Think about a farmer planting seeds. He doesn't see the harvest right away, but he doesn't stand over the ground worrying, wondering if anything is happening. He trusts the process. He waters the soil, tends to the land, and expects a harvest even when there's no visible sign. Faith works the same way. You may not see anything changing, but that doesn't mean the seed of your faith isn't working beneath the surface. So often, we want to see proof before we believe. We want to know that things will work out before we take the first step. But that's not how faith operates. Faith says, I don't see it yet, but I believe it's on the way. Faith declares, I may not feel it, but I know God is working behind the scenes. Faith says, I don't need the evidence to trust that the promise is true. The Bible is filled with stories of people who had to believe before they saw the miracle. Noah built the ark before a single drop of rain fell. Moses stretched his staff over the Red Sea before the waters parted. The walls of Jericho were still standing tall when Joshua and the Israelites started marching around them. In each case, the miracle didn't happen first. Their faith came first. Maybe today you're waiting for a sign to keep believing. You're asking God for reassurance, for some indication that things are shifting in your favor. But God is saying, trust me, even when you don't see it. Keep walking, even when nothing looks different. That's what faith is. It's confidence in what we hope for and assurance in what we do not see. You may not see how your situation is going to change. You may not have any indication that the breakthrough is coming, but don't let that shake you. The miracle isn't delayed, it's just waiting for the right time. Keep believing, keep expecting, keep standing firm, because faith always comes before the miracle. It's natural to rely on what we can see. We trust the things in front of us, the facts, the numbers, the reports. If things look good, we feel good. If the situation seems impossible, we start to doubt. But faith requires a different kind of vision. Faith says, I don't have to see it to believe it. It's about trusting beyond what our eyes can perceive. Imagine walking through a thick fog where you can only see a few steps ahead. You don't stop moving just because you can't see the whole road. You trust that as you take another step, more of the path will be revealed. That's how faith works. God doesn't always show us the full picture. He doesn't always give us immediate clarity. Instead, He asks us to take the next step, even when the destination isn't visible. In life, there will be times when the path ahead is unclear. Maybe you're believing for a breakthrough, but nothing in your circumstances suggests it's coming. Maybe you're working toward a dream, but every door seems closed. Maybe you're standing in faith for healing, but the symptoms haven't changed. It's easy to let what you see dictate what you believe, but that's not how faith operates. Faith means moving forward, even when there's no physical proof that things are changing. It's trusting that God is working even when you don't feel anything happening. It's believing that the promise is true even when the evidence hasn't yet appeared. Think about Peter when Jesus called him to walk on water. As long as Peter kept his focus on Jesus, he did the impossible. But the moment he looked at the waves, the storm, the circumstances, he started to sink. The waves were always there, but his faith allowed him to walk above them. The lesson? Don't let what you see around you shake what you know in your spirit. Walking by faith means choosing to believe when nothing makes sense. It means trusting when logic says otherwise. It means speaking victory when everything around you screams defeat. The most powerful breakthroughs happen when you keep moving forward, even in the dark. You may not have all the answers right now. You may not see how things are going to work out. But don't let that stop you. Keep taking steps of faith. Keep believing even when nothing changes. Because the moment you choose to walk by faith, that's when the unseen starts to become seen. That's when doors open, healing manifests, and the impossible becomes possible. Keep walking, because your faith is leading you straight into your breakthrough. There are moments in life when it feels like nothing is happening. You've prayed, you've believed, you've stood in faith, but everything still looks the same. The situation hasn't changed. The relationship is still broken. The finances are still tight. The medical report still doesn't look good. It's easy to wonder, God, where are you? Are you even working on this? But just because you can't see anything happening doesn't mean nothing is happening. God works in the unseen before it ever shows up in the seen. The foundation of a building is laid long before the structure ever rises. The roots of a tree grow deep underground before you ever see the first sprout. In the same way, God is arranging things behind the scenes, putting the right people in place, shifting circumstances in your favor, preparing the blessing long before you ever see it. Think about Joseph. He was given a dream that he would one day lead, but instead of rising to power immediately, he found himself betrayed, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. If you had looked at his life during those years, it would have seemed like nothing was working out. It would have looked like the dream was completely off track. But in reality, God was working the entire time, positioning him, preparing him, developing his character so that when the time was right, He would step into the promise. Maybe today you feel like you're in one of those hidden seasons. You're doing everything right, but nothing is changing. You're staying faithful, but the doors aren't opening. But let me remind you, just because you can't see the progress doesn't mean God isn't moving. Your prayers are being heard. Your obedience is being rewarded. The answer may not be visible yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't on the way. Picture an underground river. The water is flowing, carving out paths, reshaping landscapes. But to the naked eye, it seems like nothing is happening. Then one day, that hidden river breaks through, creating a beautiful waterfall. That's how God works. He moves in ways we don't always recognize. He shifts things that seem immovable. He aligns things that don't make sense at the moment. That's why you can't get discouraged in the waiting. You can't let the lack of visible change convince you that nothing is happening. The delay doesn't mean denial. The silence doesn't mean absence. The longer you stay in faith, the more you position yourself to see the fulfillment of what God has promised. So don't go by what you see, go by what you know. You know that God is faithful. You know that He never breaks His promises. You know that He's working all things together for your good. Keep standing, keep trusting, keep believing, because even when you can't see it, He's already working things out in your favor. Waiting is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you've been believing for something for a long time. You've prayed, you've stayed faithful, and yet nothing seems to be changing. The doors haven't opened, the opportunity hasn't come. The situation still looks the same. It's easy in those moments to start thinking, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe God changed His mind. Maybe I heard Him wrong. But just because something is delayed doesn't mean it's denied. Just because it's taking longer than you expected doesn't mean it's not going to happen. God's timing is not our timing. He sees the full picture while we only see a small piece. What may seem like a delay to you is often God's way of preparing you, strengthening you, and setting things in place so that when the promise comes, you'll be ready to handle it. Think about a baby growing in the womb. From the moment of conception, life has begun. The baby is forming, developing, getting stronger. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. If the baby were born too soon, it wouldn't be ready. It needs time to grow. In the same way, what you're believing for may need time. The right people have to be positioned. The right circumstances have to align. Maybe you need to grow into the person who can carry the blessing. Look at the story of David. He was anointed as king when he was just a shepherd boy. But he didn't take the throne immediately. He had to go through years of preparation, years of battles, challenges, and struggles. There were moments when it looked like it would never happen. Moments when he was running for his life, hiding in caves, wondering when his promise would be fulfilled. But the delay was not a denial. The waiting was preparing him for the position. Sometimes what looks like a delay is actually God's protection. Maybe He's keeping you from stepping into something before the right time. Maybe He's developing you so you'll be ready when the door finally opens. If you were given the blessing too soon, it might overwhelm you instead of bless you. The delay is not meant to frustrate you, it's meant to prepare you. You may feel stuck right now, wondering why things aren't changing. You may be looking at your situation thinking, God, why is this taking so long? But the truth is, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. What God promised you is still on its way. The fact that you haven't seen it doesn't mean He's forgotten you. It means He's working behind the scenes, aligning things so that when the blessing comes, it will be even greater than what you imagined. So don't get discouraged. Don't let the delay convince you to give up. What God started in your life, He will finish. Keep praying, keep believing, keep expecting, because the delay is not a denial. The promise is still on the way. Faith isn't just about believing when things are going well. It's about standing firm when everything around you tells you to give up. It's easy to have faith when the doors are opening, the blessings are flowing, and life is working in your favor. But what happens when things slow down? When the answer doesn't come right away? When the situation looks impossible? That's when true faith is tested, not in the moments of abundance, but in the seasons of waiting. Staying consistent in faith means believing even when there's no evidence. It means continuing to pray when it feels like your prayers aren't being answered. It means standing firm on God's promises even when circumstances try to convince you otherwise. Faith isn't about seeing immediate results. It's about trusting that what God spoke will come to pass in His perfect timing. Think about an athlete training for a marathon. They don't just run when they feel like it. They don't stop training because they don't see immediate progress. They stay disciplined, pushing forward, knowing that every step, every practice, every workout is building endurance for the final race. In the same way, your faith is strengthened through consistency. Every time you trust God despite the challenges, every time you declare His promises in the face of doubt, you're building spiritual endurance. Look at the story of Daniel. He was thrown into the lion's den for refusing to stop praying. He could have given in to fear. He could have questioned whether his faith was worth the risk. But he remained consistent. He didn't change his devotion to God just because circumstances became difficult. And because of that, he saw a miracle. God shut the mouths of the lions. Your faith should not be dependent on circumstances. If you only believe when things are going well, that's not faith, it's convenience. Faith means trusting even when you don't understand. It means staying in expectation even when nothing seems to be happening. It means waking up each day and choosing to believe that God is still in control. Sometimes the enemy will try to shake you with delays, disappointments, and obstacles. He knows that if he can get you to waver in your faith, he can discourage you from receiving what God has for you. But when you stay consistent, when you refuse to be moved by what you see, hear, or feel, that's when breakthroughs happen. Think about a seed planted in the ground. If you keep digging it up every few days to check if it's growing, it will never take root. But if you leave it in the soil, water it regularly, and trust the process, one day it will sprout and grow into something beautiful. Your faith works the same way. Keep watering it with prayer. Keep nurturing it with God's Word. Stay consistent even when nothing seems to be changing. Because beneath the surface, something is happening. Don't let temporary setbacks shake your confidence. Don't let discouragement talk you out of what God has promised. Stay faithful. Keep believing and keep pressing forward, because when you remain consistent in faith, you position yourself for miracles beyond what you can imagine. The blessing is on its way, and your consistency is preparing you to receive it. Your words have power. More than you realize, what you say is shaping your reality. Every time you speak, you are either planting seeds of faith, hope, and victory, or seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation. You are setting the direction of your life by the words that come out of your mouth. Many people don't realize that their own words are working against them. They pray for a breakthrough, but then they turn around and say, I'll never get out of this situation. They ask for healing, but then they tell everyone, I don't think I'll ever get better. They want to see increase, but they constantly speak lack and struggle. What they don't understand is that their words are canceling out their faith. The Bible says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. That means what you speak, you invite into your life. If you keep talking about how hard life is, you will continue to struggle. If you keep saying you'll never meet the right person, you'll keep attracting the wrong people. If you declare that things will never change, don't be surprised if they stay the same. But if you start speaking life, if you declare blessings, healing, and favor, even when your circumstances haven't changed yet, you are creating an atmosphere for miracles to take place. Think about the story of creation. God didn't sit back and wait for light to appear. He spoke it into existence. Let there be light, and there was light. He set the example for us. He was showing us that what we speak, we create. When you say, I am blessed, you are creating blessings. When you say, I am strong, strength begins to rise in you. When you declare, I will accomplish my dreams, doors start to open. Too often we let negative thoughts slip into our words. We say things without even thinking about the impact. I'm always so unlucky. I never have enough. Nothing ever goes my way. And then we wonder why life feels like a constant struggle. But what if you started to change your words? What if you replaced negative talk with faithful declarations? Instead of saying, I'll never get out of this, start saying, God is making a way for me. Instead of, I'm not smart enough, declare, I have the wisdom I need. Instead of, I'm stuck, say, new opportunities are coming my way. It's not just about positive thinking. It's about activating the power of faith through your words. Your words are prophetic. What you declare today, you will see tomorrow. Every time you speak, you are releasing something into your future. That's why it's so important to guard your mouth. Think about a thermostat. It doesn't just measure the temperature, it sets it. Your words do the same thing. They don't just reflect your situation, they shape it. If you want to see change, start speaking change. If you want to see favor, start speaking favor. If you want to see breakthroughs, start declaring them before they happen. So from this moment forward, make a decision. Speak what you want to see, not what you feel. Speak faith when fear tries to creep in. Speak victory when challenges arise. Speak abundance when lack shows up. Because what you speak, you create. And when you align your words with faith, you set yourself up for the incredible future God has in store for you. It's natural to want results. We set goals, make plans, pray for breakthroughs, and expect things to happen on our timeline. When we don't see progress right away, it's easy to get frustrated and start questioning whether we're on the right path. But faith isn't just about believing for the outcome. It's about trusting the process that leads to it. So often, we focus so much on the destination that we forget the importance of the journey. We want to reach success, but we don't want to go through the preparation. We want to see the promise fulfilled, but we don't want to endure the waiting. Yet what we don't always realize is that the process is where growth happens. The process is where strength is built. The process is where character is developed. Think about an artist creating a masterpiece. They don't just pick up a brush and instantly paint a perfect picture. It takes time, layer by layer, stroke by stroke. In the middle of the process, the painting may not look like much. It might seem messy, unfinished, unclear. But the artist knows that every detail is necessary to complete the final picture. In the same way, your life may feel like it's in the middle of a messy process. Things may not be making sense right now, but that doesn't mean God isn't working. That doesn't mean the masterpiece isn't coming together. Look at the story of Joseph. He had a dream that one day he would be in a position of leadership. But his journey to that promise was anything but easy. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison. From the outside, it looked like he was moving further away from his destiny, not closer to it. But in reality, everything he went through was part of God's process. If Joseph had gone straight from the dream to the throne, he wouldn't have been ready. The process prepared him for the promise. You may be in a season where things don't make sense. You may be asking, why is this taking so long? Why am I facing these challenges? But don't fight the process. Embrace it. There are things God is teaching you in this season that you will need for the next. There are lessons, skills, and wisdom being developed in you right now that are shaping you for what's ahead. If you skip the process, you won't be fully prepared for the promise. Think about a butterfly in a cocoon. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, but on the inside, transformation is taking place. If you try to force the butterfly out too soon, its wings won't be strong enough to fly. The struggle of breaking out of the cocoon is what gives it the strength to soar. In the same way, the challenges you face now are strengthening you for where you're going. Too often, we only praise God when we see results. We thank Him when the promotion comes, when the healing manifests, when the relationship is restored. But real faith is learning to trust Him before you see the outcome. It's saying, God, I may not understand this season, but I trust that you're in control. I trust that you're working all things together for my good. So don't rush the process. Don't get discouraged just because things aren't happening as fast as you'd like. The waiting is not wasted time. The detours are not mistakes. The challenges are not meant to break you. They're meant to build you. Trust the process. Because when the time is right, the promise will come. And you'll be stronger, wiser, and more prepared than you ever thought possible. There are moments in life when it feels like you're at the end of your rope. You prayed, you believed, you stood in faith, but nothing seems to be changing. You're fighting battles that seem never ending. You're facing obstacles that look impossible to overcome. You've done everything you know to do, yet the situation still appears the same. It's easy to feel like giving up. It's easy to think, maybe this is just how it's going to be. Maybe it's never going to happen for me. But what if I told you that your breakthrough is closer than you think? What if I told you that just beyond the frustration, just beyond the struggle, just beyond the disappointment, there is a shift coming? Sometimes right when we feel like quitting is when we are the closest to our victory. The enemy knows how close you are to stepping into the promise, so he throws everything he can at you to discourage you. He wants you to walk away, to lose hope, to settle where you are. But now is not the time to stop believing. Now is not the time to let go of the promise. Think about a runner in a marathon. They train for months, pushing through exhaustion, disciplining their body, building endurance. But do you know when the race feels the hardest? It's not at the beginning. It's not even in the middle. The most challenging moment is right before the finish line, when their body is aching, when their legs are tired, when everything in them wants to quit. But those who push through, those who refuse to give up, are the ones who cross the finish line. Maybe you've been in a long season of waiting. Maybe you feel like you've hit a wall. But don't let what you see in the natural convince you that nothing is happening. What you can't see is the breakthrough forming behind the scenes. What you can't see is how close you are to your victory. Sometimes the greatest resistance comes right before the greatest blessing. Look at the story of the Israelites when they were standing at the walls of Jericho. God told them to march around the city for 6 days, and on the seventh day to march 7 times. Imagine how they felt on the 6th lap of the last day. They had been walking for days, yet the walls still stood tall. No cracks, no signs of change. Nothing to indicate that their obedience was making a difference. It would have been easy to quit, to think, this isn't working. But they didn't stop. They marched that 7th lap, and when they shouted, the walls came down. What if they had quit too soon? What if they had given up on the 6th lap? They were closer than they realized, and you are too. You might be one prayer away from your breakthrough, one act of obedience away from seeing the doors open, one more moment of faith away from stepping into everything you've been waiting for. Don't give up in the middle of the process. Keep marching, keep believing, keep expecting. You may not feel it, you may not see it, but something is shifting in your favor. The right people are being positioned. The opportunities are being prepared. The favor, the healing, the restoration is all on its way. What God has spoken over your life will come to pass. And when it does, you'll look back and realize just how close you were the entire time. So don't let weariness stop you. Don't let doubt hold you back. Keep standing, keep declaring, keep trusting. Because your breakthrough is closer than you think. Through every challenge, every delay, every moment of uncertainty, one truth remains: God is faithful. He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating things in your favor even when you can't see it. The journey of faith isn't about waiting for a sign to believe. It's about trusting without evidence, walking forward when the path is unclear, and holding on to hope even when everything tells you to let go. When it feels like nothing is changing, remember that delay is not denial. God's timing is always perfect, and what He has promised will come to pass at the right moment. Stay consistent in faith, because your persistence is preparing you for the breakthrough. Speak life over your situation. What you declare, you create. Trust the process, not just the outcome. Knowing that every step, every challenge, every waiting season is shaping you for what's ahead. Most importantly, don't give up now. You are closer to your breakthrough than you think. The walls that seem unmovable are about to fall. The doors that have been closed are about to open. The miracle you've been believing for is already in motion. So keep pressing forward, keep believing, and keep expecting. Because what God has started in your life, He will surely finish.